I like it.
All right, everybody, we are live on episode 24. Is it 24? Yes, of Practical Chrome. Everyone, welcome to Practical Chrome episode 24. 9/10ths of the law. Today is Tuesday, May 27th, 2014. And again, welcome aboard. Of course, today's episode is brought to you by the Effective Group. Do you need a fantastic website that not only looks great on mobiles and tablets, but also gets you selling online, then Effective Group is the company for you. To find out more about Effective Group, view their portfolio, and read about their successes, visit effective-group.com. And thanks to them for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate it. And of course, everybody, welcome to Practical Chrome, the show dedicated to everything Chrome. Of course, welcome my co-hosts James Welbes and Craig Tumblison. James, how you doing this evening with your Google hat? Your Google hat?
Doing pretty good, John. Thanks for having me.
You betcha, you betcha. Mr. Tumbleson, what do you say?
I'm honored to be here as always, John.
Oh, stop, gentlemen, stop, stop, stop. Of course, this is the podcast dedicated to everything Chrome, and we are the team that puts it together, and we bring you the news and tips and reviews on everything Google Chrome related. So that means like your Google browser, which of course is Chrome, and that's going to be on your iOS iPhone or on your Android device or on your Apple computer or on your Windows computer or on your Linux computer. Any one of those machines, we will give you the tips and give you all the latest news regarding that in podcast and videocast form. So welcome. Of course, be sure to check us out every Tuesday at 10:10 on YouTube, practicalchrome.com, and any place else I can try and throw the media against the wall and the internet. So let's go ahead and start off with the news, guys. This has been a lonely news week at first, but then it got better. It always gets better. Um, I want to start off with this really cool thing. Um, the first thing is I wanted to bring up is Reddit.com. We've brought up Reddit.com a couple of times um, because it's pretty cool. It's very hip. It's very young. It's very the internet of things. And one of the things I haven't ever said, I think Craig, you've brought it up a couple of times, and I've been remiss because I think it's actually a great way to get information for people that are using Chrome devices, Chrome browsers, especially Chrome OS. There's actually a couple of great Reddit groups out there. Um, I think it's Chrome OS, right, Craig? The main one for Chrome OS. It's just Chrome OS, all one word.
Yes, and that's actually led by Jonathan Romer, who is also a moderator on the Google Plus community.
Exactly. And you know what Reddit is user submitted, finds of really cool things. So it's actually a great place for people to get information or just to throw a question out there and get some more understanding. I know that there's a lot of people out there that ask questions. That's a great place to start. I wanted to bring that up because I went scavenging through there and I found someone that was actually putting together an article on how to go and use VMware and Chrome OS, not Chromium, but Chrome OS. And he actually, one of his templates was the the one article that I have on Practical Chrome, which is regarding putting Chromium in VMware. But he took it to the next level, and he used a couple of tools. He honestly he surprised me a little bit, and I wanted to just bring it up real quick, um, because it's a way for people if you're interested in Chrome OS, and you're like, I want to know what it's like. I want to know what it's all about. A lot of people say, well, just crack open your browser and use that as your only device, your only tool. Or with Windows 8, you could do the Metro Desktop, and boom, you've got Chrome OS. That's cool and all, but for like an in-depth experience, being able to use Chrome OS directly, you can do it in VMware Player, which is a free application from VMware, and then also I believe he says VirtualBox should work. My whole point of bringing this up was that he wrote a really great article that actually expands on and really gets you to jump into Chrome OS. Chromium OS is the same, but missing some of the fundamental pieces and a lot of color, to be honest. It's a lot of grays and blues. Where Chrome OS has all the pretty yellows and blues and greens and all that good stuff. So definitely check this out. I'm gonna have a link in the show notes. So if you know how to use VMware and you're a little bit comfortable with the Linux command line, it's really straightforward. His instructions are really good. I'll have a link there. And remember that I found this on the Reddit subpage for Chrome OS, and be sure to check that out. So I just wanted to bring that up. Craig James, not really comment worthy. Just gotta put it out there. I don't know if you guys are really into VMware or the Linuxiness of it all, but it really is a way for someone to have literally a virtual machine of Chrome OS. So I thought it was really cool, really well done. So next up though is the Chrome Web Store adds available for Android search filter. And I thought this was pretty cool. So like for instance, I believe Pushbullet would actually have an Android icon because you're going to be able to get the Pushbullet on your Android and then of course Pushbullet in Chrome. Craig, you kind of put these notes together. You really helpful guy, you. So I was wondering if you'd had a chance to look at that, and because I honestly I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I looked at the article obviously when it first was published. I don't know that I've seen them start showing up yet for me, but honestly, I don't use the Chrome Web Store search functionality a lot. Usually when I'm installing an app, it's because it's been directly recommended to me, so I have a direct install link. But I think overall it's a positive change. It'll go a little bit further into making the apps. Uh, it'll kind of unite the brand a little bit, make new Chromebook owners feel a little more comfortable about using it, because they'll know it's not a rip-off app. It's actually from the same people that make the app that they use on Android already. So I think it's a small change that'll go a long way toward making Chrome OS and Chromebooks in general a little bit more accessible for new users. But it's not earth-shattering or anything like that. It's just one of those little details that are always appreciated, but never really worth blowing the foghorns over.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I hear you. Well, I mean, I think it's a good thing. And actually, I'm reading the article from OMG Chrome, and I'd skimmed it, but it actually looks like Joey put an update in there that the filter part was removed. But I believe that the icon might still be there. James, have you had a chance to take a look at that? And because you're an Android user as well, so I mean, you definitely would. It's something that you would look for, right?
Yeah, definitely something I would look for. I also have not seen it yet. Um, so I looked at a couple obvious ones like Push Bullet. I didn't see the Android icon. I didn't see the Android icon for the Spotify Chrome app. So I'm not sure if it's something that's coming in a future update, and maybe I just haven't updated yet. But I'm excited for it. I think it's a lot of it for me is we've been complaining about Chrome Web Store search from the search giant sucking. And so it's kind of nice to see that Google has been putting a lot of effort into it lately with the update to the mobile version of the Chrome Web Store, so we can finally look at apps on our mobile phones, with them talking about adding the Android button so we know which apps exist on Android, all the filters that they've added recently. So I'm just excited. Every time I hear that Google's adding another feature to the Chrome Web Store search, that's good news to me. And I think this will be a good one because, like you mentioned, Spotify is a good example. You search for Spotify and there's 400 different apps about Spotify. You don't know which one is just the actual Spotify web player half the time. So it would be nice to be able to see when I download an app on my Chromebook to just have a link directly to the Android app, so I don't have to go searching through a long list of apps. I just know I'm getting the right one. So haven't seen it yet, but I'm kind of excited to see it.
Yeah, and honestly, we're gonna have to figure out. Joey mentions the fact that that it was removed, right? The filter, but he says filter, but yet when I go to the store, I did notice that it's actually missing entirely. So not only is the filter missing, and if you look at that image, you can see on the image that he's got on there that there's a filter at the bottom as well as the logo icon up there. And I just went to the web store, and it's not there. So they must have taken not only the filter down, but also the logo and all that good stuff. So that's kind of sad, but that's what can you do? But I'm sure it's coming back soon. Joe didn't have any indication of when that would be, but I agree with both of you. And James, your note about the fact that you're trying to figure out which one is the correct app. That's a big deal. Say next up in the news, PDFium. That's an interesting word. Chrome's PDF rendering engine goes open source. So the engine that's used, it used to be an exclusive piece of software, according to Dinsan here, off Chrome Story. It looks like they've actually released the code. Now I haven't had a chance. I know that how the code works. How it was one of those bundled like binaries that, like when we just talked about Chromium versus Chrome OS. This was one of those pieces that I believe didn't work because it wasn't an open source project. It wasn't part of Chromium. Is that correct, Craig?
That is correct. It was under a proprietary license from Adobe, if you want to call it that. It was a partnership that they kind of crafted, but I'll let you go ahead and cover the rest of how they're going to move forward with it.
Well, that would be good if I could read the article really really fast. um, so according to the article, the let's see here. It looks like they're soon going to be able to, Chromium OS users will be able to enjoy the Chrome PDF viewer without any workarounds. That's in the Chromium browser as well as Chromium OS. So that's interesting though. But it looks like they're hosting, of course, on Google Code. Interesting. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's one of those the blobs. So a little bit more is now out there and available to the open source community, and that's. And when it comes to PDF, James, what PDFs, right? Doesn't it seem like I remember nowadays, like, you know, for instance, Chrome OS, it's going to print a PDF. You can download PDFs. PDFs are flying around everywhere. But 10 years ago, man, it was like trying to pull teeth to get either to be able to write a PDF, create a PDF, look at a PDF. I mean, you had to install Adobe Acrobat. You had to really jump through hoops to get PDF to work. Now it's almost like literally the format for flat files that are uneditable but you want printed.
Yeah, I remember PDFs always used to confuse me back in the day because I was like, all this is a Word document that I can't edit. Why would I want that? But obviously there are advantages to the PDFs, and back then you're right, you couldn't do anything without Adobe's paid software. I remember an Android app came out. I could take a picture of something and it would turn it into PDF, and my brain almost exploded. I thought, whoa, I can create a PDF without purchasing software. Like, I could just make anything, take a picture of it, and make it a PDF. I thought that was so cool because at the time it kind of was. But the print to PDF feature, I never really understood what that was. I never did it. I think I was overthinking it. It's really awesome. It's just so simple, and you click print, and instead of printing from your printer, it saves whatever you're looking at as a PDF. So that's pretty cool too. These days, anybody can really create a PDF without much difficulty and without having to buy software. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like it. I agree. I'm with you. Craig, any other thoughts on that? Because I brought up the whole PDF thing. It was because PDFs have always been, I'm like James. At first, I was like, portable document format, but I can't even open it. Like, quit sending them to me. I can't open it. I gotta download some app that needs to be updated every 10 days or so. You're killing me.
Well, yeah, it did used to be very complicated. I can remember that too. But this change is overwhelmingly positive. Like you mentioned, they're basically going to make the tool that they built open source. So we will eventually see this in Chromium OS, and we may see it for standalone platforms as well. Once it's out there, the open source community is fantastic about porting things all over the place. So I look forward to that. Just as to reiterate what James said, Save to PDF is one of my most used features. I use it every time a website gives me a receipt that I don't want to print. I just save it as a PDF, stick it in Drive. I use it for my online courses when I get feedback on a quiz. I just print a PDF, that entire page, and use it as a study guide later. There are thousands of uses for that, and I cannot talk it up enough.
There you go. It's true. PDFs, it's weird. It's become the flat file, format for it's very interesting. Hey, and they look good too when they print. Anyway, on to the next stuff, right? So PDFs are now going to be open source, and the technology behind the one used in Chromium, Chrome browser, and Chrome OS, that's rocking. Now the other thing that's rocking are scanners on Chrome OS. Now it's not right now, right? It's coming. It's one of those things that this is coming. It's going to be coming soon. They're creating a new API, and basically it'll allow the Chrome OS to be able to see and talk to scanners. Now, so now it has to do a number of things, right? It's going to need to retrieve the image. It's going to need to, understand USB or maybe even the LAN scanners. It's really going to have to open up and see everything. So it's one of those things that's coming. But this is really exciting because I know that there's been a couple of people that have asked me, John, I want to print and I want to be able to scan. And printing has been coming. It's come a long way, but people still, have confusion as to how it all works. And they don't understand the whole cloud print, purpose, how that works. And so in scanning, it seemed like almost like a bigger hurdle, but and this is from Chrome Store, of course, InSign, but Francois before is the one that released the information that the API was going to be coming, and it's currently it's proposed and it's under review. So, I think James, you've talked about this in the past too. Just trying to be able to scan something has been a major kind of hurdle.
Yeah, this is like the best news I've ever heard, maybe in my life. My wife agreeing to marry me, that might be number one. This is like a close second. I am just so sick of my crappy Windows laptop. I want to never use it again, is my goal. And scanning documents right now is like the only thing I use this thing for, especially now that there's an FTP app that works with Chrome OS. I no longer have to use my Windows laptop for FileZilla. I'm just using it to scan documents. If I could scan a freaking document from my Chromebook, I could just throw the Windows laptop out the window and never have to deal with it again. So I'm very excited about the prospect of being able to do that. I know there's other people that have talked about workarounds. Some printers can print right to your Google Drive, and so I haven't figured out how to do that. I don't know if my scanner supports that, but apparently some do. This would just be nice to be able to just talk to my scanner, not have to mess with workarounds. Just open my Chromebook, scan a document, and be done with it. So super excited about this. I'll probably go into dev mode if I have to make this work sooner than later.
Oh, James willing to jump into dev mode.
I'll do it.
Craig, I don't know, how often do you need to scan something, honestly? Craig, start.
Maybe a couple times a month, and I actually use the Drive app on my phone because you can take a picture of the document with your phone, and it uploads straight to Drive as a PDF.
Now, is it OCR'd? Is it optical character recognition, so you can actually copy and paste out of it?
I think you can copy and paste out of it once it's up there, but I can't promise that. I don't use that feature myself, but I think they are searchable, so there must be something on the back end that does that translation.
Cool. That's pretty cool. Well, see, I rarely have to scan anything, so. But if I did, I would have that app. That app sounds rocking. So I'll have to try that. But the fact that the API is coming to Chromebooks, I think, is going to be a big thing, especially for places like the enterprise, because you can just buy a scanner that would work with it and be done with it. Because there's a ton of scanning done at my work. It's unbelievable. How much scanning? So that'd be great. Now here's one of the big news stories. And when I say big, I mean the hard drive. It's huge. And this hard drive is the fact that Lenovo and Brent Sullivan out of the Google Chromebooks G+ community, he found this on a couple of retail sites where basically they were like, here's this new Chromebook coming out from Lenovo with a 500 gigabyte hard drive and a 16 gigabyte SSD along the side. Now you might be thinking to yourself, how does that work? Well, this is actually a common configuration in some performance machines, because basically you can put the OS or other apps that might need to be super fast. You can put them all on the SSD, which has twice or three times the read rate. I can't remember what it is. It's ridiculously much faster because you're not using a spinning disk. It's also better on battery, but this allows you to like instantly pull the data in, into RAM and then into the CPU. So you're like the OS is much faster. So this is definitely a configuration I've seen before, but on a Chromebook. Now that's just it's crazy to think that a Chromebook would even need 500 gigabytes. I mean that to me that completely negates the cloud. Craig, I know that we were all in discussion about this when Brent found it. He let us know, and then he posted to the G Plus community. What do you think about a 500 gigabyte hard drive? I mean, there's the SSD part of it, of course, but then there's 500 gigabytes. I mean, I don't even currently own a laptop with that big of a hard drive. Mine are all under 250, I believe, and I haven't even filled them up.
I think it's a shot in the dark, to be honest. I think it's a way to appease a very small niche of consumers. For me personally, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The USB 3.1 spec was finalized back in August of last year, and it actually gets 10 gigabits of throughput. So at that type of speed with USB 3.1, for me, it makes sense to put a 16 gigabyte solid-state drive in the laptop, keep the laptops cheap, and just buy a 2 terabyte external drive I can throw in a suitcase. To me, the 500 internal is just kind of, it just screams heavy, it screams slow, it screams expensive, and it screams out of date, really. I mean, when we think about the last Chromebook that had a spinning hard drive in it, that was the Acer C710, and the build quality was poor. The bottom fell off of it every now and then. But it just was not a good, strong Chromebook out of the lineup. And that's why we were so impressed when the C720 got back to basics with the 16 gigabyte solid-state drive and a very much improved build quality. To me, I guess I get what they're doing. They're targeting the few people that are buying Chromebooks that want the extra space, but I don't see this being the #1 selling Amazon laptop for 2014.
You're on mute there, John.
Mr. Welbes, now that I'm off mute. Sorry, I had to take a drink of my drink. I agree with you, Craig. I think it's pointless. 500 gigabytes. It negates the cloud purposes. It's ridiculous. And then the weight. I believe in the weight. But Mr. Wallace, now you made a comment. I believe your comment was, correct me if I'm wrong, but your comment was, sir, if the price is right. So what makes you say? I mean, Craig made the point of the fact that the price is going to be, much greater. Right now, I realize that the hard drives have come down in price, things like that. But there's going to be a fee for this. My question to you would be, I mean, right now you're spending $200 on a C720, $300 to $350 on an HP 14, and then I think you're making a new purchase coming up here for again around only like $250. What if this thing is like $300, and are you willing to pay for this 500 gigabyte hard drive?
Well, it depends. I mean, just a quick search on Google told me that a 500 gigabyte hard drive for a computer right now you can get for $40, and that's me buying it online. I'm guessing Lenovo could probably stick one in a computer for like $15 or $20, or maybe even less. They may be planning on trying to be that one Chromebook that has that one thing that no other Chromebook has, and maybe they're going to eat part of that cost. Who knows? So far, none of the vendors, I don't think, have posted any prices. At least they didn't when I was looking at it. So at this point, we really have no idea how much it's going to cost. It only has 2 gigabytes of RAM, so I ain't buying it. But it has a distinct advantage over the Acer C710 in that, yes, it has a spinning hard drive on it, but the OS is on the 16 gigabyte solid state drive. So in theory, it shouldn't suffer from some of the things that maybe the Acer C710 did. It should at least boot up fast and keep running fast. And I imagine that the hard drive. I don't know a whole lot about computers. It would be nice if you could. It'd almost be nice if you could unmount the 500 gigabyte hard drive from your computer and only so it's not just spinning all day, when you're not even using it. But so I see this as actually, if they keep the price right, especially for a 2 gigabyte model, nobody wants to pay more than much more than $200 probably for a 2 gigabyte Haswell Chromebook. If they keep the price right, I think this might actually sell. I don't think it's going to be #1 on Amazon either, but I mean, I think we've all seen in the Chromebooks community, there are people out there saying, man, this is great, but I wish I had more local storage because I got 4 billion songs and movies and TV shows that I have to carry around with me everywhere I go, and it would be nice if I could. And that's like the one argument I've heard people say, oh, I'm going to keep my C710 because I got that 320 gigabyte hard drive on it. And so I think if they keep the price reasonable, I think this will sell, particularly for the Lenovo brand people who are waiting for a Lenovo Chromebook. I think there's already one out there, but maybe they want another one. So I think it'll sell well enough to make it worth it, but it's not going to be number one seller, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Not going to be a #1 seller, but and you made a point about the fact that it's new, right? I mean, it's a new configuration we haven't seen yet, so that's a good thing, right? That comes out of left field a little bit. So finally in the news, okay, we've talked about big hard drives, we've talked about PDFs. Well, now let's talk about Chrome OS and the new recovery utility. So this is from Google, right? So, and this is actually available on multiple platforms, and it actually is a Chrome app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up. Let me share my screen here. Come on, there we go. So right now, of course, I'm on a Windows machine. So what I've got up on the screen in front of you right now is, of course, the article from OMG Chrome, just kind of going over the tool itself and basically how it can create a recovery of your system. And if I go in here, kind of scroll around until I find where is it? I think it's at the end. There we go. Recovery. So this is a little guy here, and when I crack it open, and you can see here, this is the Chromebook recovery utility. And you get to create a recovery media for your Chromebook. And this is a step-by-step process. Before, we would burn the image using the image burner flag in the Omnibar. But now this actually gives you multiple ways to create a backup. And I just kind of wanted to go over this real quick with everybody. So like if I did my Acer C720 here, I took the C720 here, and then I would go ahead and you can put the model number in directly, but then you just click continue. And again, this is a Chrome app, so this works for multiple things. Now, of course, it didn't find a card available, but it would actually ask you, it would find the SD card, the SD card or the USB drive, and then it would flash it. And you can even use the local install, which is up here. Use local image. A couple different options there, but it's a really cool little tool. James, have you had a chance to look at it yet?
No, John, I actually haven't looked at it. I probably should, but who's got time for that?
I know, I agree. It's one of those things. It's like the and I'm going to bring this up too, Craig. While I shoot to you, another tool that they came up with, and I'm going to bring that up on my screen as well. And this is another Google tool, and this one actually does diagnostics for your system. And again, it's a Chrome app, but right now, remember, this is a Windows machine that does my displays, only because of the limitations of using Hangouts and sharing your screen and a couple other things with the Chromebook. I can't do what I'm doing now. So that's the reason why I use a Windows machine if everybody ever asks. The display behind me, yes, is using Windows. But where this is a Chrome show, not just a Chrome OS show. So anyway, my point is, these are two apps that are available in the Chrome Web Store that are standalone apps, they're packaged apps, but yet they do some very in-depth things inside the operating system. They use local storage. This one does a huge sniff of your network to make sure that what you need is going to work. So it's just very interesting. But Craig, have you tried the new utility yet?
Well, I could lie and say I haven't, but if you check the authorship on that article, I actually wrote that article. So yeah, I've actually gone pretty in depth with it. I'm the one who took all the screenshots. It's an awesome, gorgeous little utility. I've been using Image Burner for 2 years, and the experience has always been a little lackluster. I've been hesitant to recommend creating a recovery device to a lot of my friends and family just because it's such a lackluster process. It's a little confusing. It feels a little bit advanced-ish. But this tool makes it so easy. And the detail they paid to this. I mean, John, like you should, when you select your model, it actually updates the little preview window with a picture of your laptop or Chromebox or whatever. So I mean, it's the little details that really make it worth it. I'm just so thrilled to see this, and I cannot wait for it to hit stable. It's technically beta software. It hasn't been officially released, but people that are interested can grab it today from the Chrome Web Store. It's just like any other app. So I'm looking forward to seeing it officially released. That's just me.
Well, there you go. Sorry, Craig, I didn't even notice I've got up on the screen there. Yeah, that's your byline. Yep. That's you. I didn't even notice, nor in the show notes did you say, hey, I wrote this. So I'm basically blaming you for me not noticing the byline. Okay, so you have used it, you sneaky devil. All right, and it's a great app. I definitely it's one of those. It's so funny. Quick story. Whenever people ask me, well, Chrome's just online stuff. It's not apps. It's just the browser. A lot of the thing I always point them to is the calculator. I'm like, no, it has apps, and of course I open the calculator. People are like, oh, great, a calculator. But those two apps I just discussed, for the utility along with the along with the recovery tool, it shows the standalone app, how well they work. There's a couple others that I have, the MP3 player, things like that. But anyway, just one of those things I wanted to point out. So that's it for the news. Thank you, gentlemen. And of course, remember, this episode is sponsored by the Effective Group. We want to thank them again and let you know about the Effective Group. Right now, the Effective Group, they're based in the UK. They were established 15 years, and they've been working across the world. And when you work with them, you're definitely in safe hands, right? Because the Effective Group, they're making the internet work for you. Okay, what their stats kind of show the increase in turnover and search rate of a person's website or company's website that works with the Effective Group. They definitely work with you on web design, SEO management, PPC management, product listing ads management, social media management. They basically run the whole your internet presence, and they take care of you. And they don't just you tell them what you want, and then they just throw it up there, and then they're done. They work with you through the entire process, get everything all taken care of, as well as also maintaining your internet presence and make sure that you're good, and also your SEO, right, for search engine optimization. And again, I talked about last week was the fact that the mobile, when you have one website, one type of presence, one set of icons, and everything looks the same across those, that's something that they do really well. It's something that I've seen directly, and also when you go to their website and you take a look at some of the, some of their other people, the web pages that they've built, SEO management that they've done, and you look at them, they have that great quality where they're able to size out, and it works really well. So be sure to find out more about Effective Group. Definitely visit their portfolio and read about those successes I just mentioned by visiting effective-group.com. Again, that's effective-group.com. And again, thanks to them for sponsoring the show. It's really great of them. Really appreciate it. All right, guys. So 9/10 of the law. Indeed. So, Craig, you brought this up last week, and I wanted to. Sorry, there was an ant. I had to wipe the ant away. 9/10 of the law. Craig, last week you mentioned that there was a link that you shared with us, and we talked about the fact that, and that's actually on my. Oh dear, I've got both links. That doesn't work. You shared. Only 1 second. I'm going to bring it up. You shared the fact that Cryptokit, and what I'm going to do really quickly, and Craig, I'm going to have you kind of go over what happened, but I'm going to open this link here. And again, this is Reddit, so for those of you who are not familiar with Reddit, oh man, that's still not it. I'm trying to find the other link, but I can't seem to find it. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, everybody. Give me 1 more second. And that's still not it. That's awesome. My point was to find their response, but I'm sure I'll find it later. I'll add it to the show notes later. But this is Reddit, and this was the original post where a person said that Cryptokit was removed from, well, they thought it was removed from their their Chromium instance, I believe actually it was on Linux. I think a lot of these people actually use Linux, but if you were using Chrome OS, the same thing would happen, or if you're using Chrome on some other system. I'm really quickly, I'm going to share my screen, and I kind of want to go over what it does and why people were so upset. Because when we talk about this 9/10 of the law, right? Possession is 9/10 of the law, and what you own and what you don't own. I kind of want to go over this in the sense of Bitcoin a little bit. Now, if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, I'm really quickly going to go over it and show you the app really fast because it's important, especially with what we're talking about. So this application is called Cryptokit Bitcoin Wallet. I'm going to share the screen real quick. So you can see here I've opened an extension. Again, here, Reddit in the background. This is an extension, right? So this is a small application that pops up in the back end. And if you notice me right now, I'm moving my mouse because it's generating a new Bitcoin wallet. Once I'm done, boom. So this address here is actually a wallet address, right? And so what happens is that when you transfer money between one person or another, you transfer Bitcoin, which as much as it sounds like for some people like a fanciful idea of transferring money using this technique where I would just paste an address such as this in this spot, put an amount to send and hit send, that it's kind of crazy that that's how you send money to each other. But that's kind of the point of Bitcoin. It is a decentralized monetary value, monetary unit, currency, right? And it uses bits. Now it's all encrypted, it's very secure, all that good stuff. Now, when you say this is your wallet, that means that sitting on this computer, now that I've done this, and if someone were to actually transfer Bitcoins to me, then the wallet would actually be sitting on my, now in this case it's a Windows machine, or if I had Chrome OS, or if I had a Linux machine or a Mac machine, in the extensions local storage folder, there would be a Bitcoin wallet. Now, if Google were to come across and were to disable this application, to people that aren't super savvy, which is a lot of us, I mean, didn't even know how to do it right away. I had to look at the instructions that the developers came up with, and they're very detailed, and they're very, very scary if you think that you're not going to get your money back. Because what if you had transferred a great deal of Bitcoin, which, like, I don't know what it is today. I can actually have a nice little app here. They have a little charts app. Let me see if I do it. It's right here. Right now, trading for, let's see here. I believe this is USD, 1 Bitcoin. So if you transfer 1 Bitcoin, it's worth $577. So if you had $2, two Bitcoin sitting there, that's over $1,000 worth of cash in a wallet on your computer. So now I just wanted to put that out there. So last week, this application was disabled by Google. And I'm going to actually hand it over to Craig to kind of go over the finer points, but this is the actual app, and this is why this is brought up, why it's important to understand what was happening at the time. So Craig, I'm gonna kind of turn it back over to you. That was the application that was disabled, and I kind of and then I'm gonna leave Reddit up behind me so people can see the original article there.
Sure. First, real quick, I want to clarify that the wallet itself, at least my understanding, is that the wallet itself isn't actually stored on your computer. That's not a good way to think of it. More importantly, the private keys or the encryption code is what is stored on your computer. And if you lose access to that encryption code, then you do lose access to the quote-unquote wallet. So if you keep a backup of those private keys somewhere else, you wouldn't truly lose access, but the extension is designed to be very drop-dead easy to use, so it doesn't prompt you, my understanding, to do any of those extra steps. But in general, what happened in this situation was that, like John said, there was an existing extension. It served a very legitimate purpose, and it disappeared suddenly off people's machines, seemingly randomly. People were very upset because, as John pointed out, this is essentially, it's a currency that has cash value to the United States dollar. So it's not just imaginary internet points. This is a currency. So it would be like waking up and finding your wallet gone, your TV missing, the front door standing wide open, and Google's self-driving car is leaving the scene. That's kind of what it felt like in this situation. So a few hours after this all happened, the extension was reinstated, and a Google team member actually commented on Reddit. He created a new post to explain what happened. And I have to give them credit for this. It is not often when an employee goes on the record on any user-generated site, but especially Reddit, and comments on the record about a situation like this. It takes guts to own up to your mistake, and frankly, it takes guts to face the Reddit user base. So credit where credit is due. But the explanation they gave is basically that a malware developer hoping to steal the Bitcoin private keys copied the Cryptokit open source extension code base, and basically they copied the code because it was open source, they had access to it. They compiled their own version with most of the same code and just tweaked it so that instead of storing the private keys, it would steal them. And then they published the app, and because Google has certain checks in place to prevent malicious extensions from being uploaded to the Chrome Web Store, when they noticed the suspicious activity and told their software that the malicious extension was indeed malicious, it accidentally automatically flagged Cryptokit as also malicious because it shared the same code base. And from an engineering perspective, it's entirely logical for that to happen. I mean, it's one of those automated systems. You build it once, you deploy it, it works for a long time, and it works really well until something like this happens, and, well, then you have to get the press team involved. So that's essentially what happened, but the Chrome team was really eager to point out that no data was ever actually removed from user machines. They didn't actually uninstall the extension, which was our misconception last week, but instead they only disabled it. So in other words, the extension data was still on the machines, you just didn't have access to it, which is just as scary in my opinion, especially when you don't know what's going on and you're waiting for a public statement. But Google was very clear that they're not anti-Bitcoin. This was not something where, oh, Google's taking a stance and saying we're not going to allow Bitcoin apps. Apple has taken that stance. But no, in this case, it was a completely failure of an automated system, and I assume they're going to correct it moving forward. They're going to tweak it so it doesn't happen, or at least it might take some manual oversight before it does happen. But in this case, the extension has been reinstated, and users now have access to the locally stored data once again.
I'm muted. I was muted again. I'm sorry about that. There you go. There, and there you go. So that's like the whole story, right? That's how everything went down with that, and it became very unnerving for people in the Bitcoin community because of the fact that they thought that their data was gone, right? They thought that the application being deleted might be that it was gone, but they did disable it, and no data was harmed in the process, no back-end data. So like if you had just like a text editor type application that's stored locally in a extension folder, the same thing would have happened. You would have had a application that was disabled, but yet you still had your local data, because the app's going to be the thing that's going to cause the malicious problem. So the 9/10 of the law portion of the show, right, was about the fact that Google has the ability to disable the application, right? Now iOS has a kill switch, and Android has a kill switch, and other OSs have other varying ways of killing an application. So, but the question is, and I'm gonna start, Craig. I know where I think you stand. So, but I'm gonna go. I think you might have laid that out there a little bit. So I want to give James the opportunity first, and then Craig, and then I'll kind of finish up on what we think of the fact that we might have purchased an app for $3, $6, $25, $100, right? We might have purchased an app, and here we are with like it disappearing on us, and it possibly being disabled or something like that, because the manufacturer of the operating system decided to turn it off, whether that was for altruistic reasons, or because in some instances because it might have violated the terms of service of somebody where you sold the OS to, right? For instance, iOS turning off the tethering apps, right, and disabling them off iOS back in the day, things like that. So, Craig, James, I'm going to start with you, sir. What are your thoughts on the fact that Google has the ability to reach into your Chrome instance, whether that be on Linux, Mac, or Chrome OS, and disable an application or extension?
Well, my first knee-jerk reaction is, of course, get out of my computer. It's mine. And but when I hear what happened in this instance, if we assume that it wasn't this other random malicious app that was trying to steal our private keys, if it actually was the Cryptokit app, I forget what it's called, stealing our private keys, that would be a big deal. And so if Google simply disabling the app on my laptop could prevent me from losing 2 Bitcoin or $1,000 US dollars, then I would probably write Google a thank you letter after that happened. In this case, it was a goof up. They disabled the wrong app because some other jerk was trying to steal our stuff. So that kind of sucks because it scared a lot of people into thinking they lost their money. But in the end, everything was okay. They owned up to their mistake, and I think it at least shows that Google does take our data seriously, and they are, in this case, I feel like their fingers reaching into our computers was actually intended for our better, for our good, basically. Obviously, they could really abuse that power. If some app maker makes an app and it violates some random little fine print of Google's terms of service, and suddenly they go in and disable the extension on 1,000 people's computers, that could get annoying. But I don't think this has happened very often. I don't know if you've done some research to see how many other times Google has disabled apps, Chrome apps. This was a big deal because it involved money, so a lot of people are upset. But I think as long as they don't abuse it, then I'm sure we all had to agree to give them the ability to do that when we downloaded an app in the terms of service. So I think it's okay. You know, it's not enough to make me abandon Chrome apps and install Firefox and start waiting for a Firefox store. You know, I think they did it for our good, and I am hoping that they'll continue to do that and not abuse that ability.
I'm with you. Now you bring up the terms of service thing, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I don't know when the last time it was that I read a term of service, especially on something that from a product that I'd already had in my life forever, like Google. I don't know. I don't read them. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, come on, seriously, like I don't.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. That being said, right? That being said, it makes me wonder a couple things. One, where are the days of, because Windows is probably going to start doing this. iOS definitely does this. Mac has a couple of things out there like Gatekeeper that you've got to turn off if you want to install some apps, things like that. So, I mean, the days of being able to say that this operating system is mine, this machine is 100% mine, they're dwindling. I think that giving the manufacturer of the operating system the ability to control some of these things is a good thing in one sense, but in another sense, I'm like, I don't want it to happen. I want you to leave me alone. I don't want you to take that out of there, because to me it's scary. It's like, well, if you can just reach in and just disable something, that's just a little bit scary. Craig, I think I know where you stand. And I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna go to you first. And I want you to lay it out there. What are your thoughts? I mean, is Linux their only bastion of hope for OSs that are gonna leave us alone a little bit?
Well, John, I want to address the last point you made first, which was that you're a little bit skittish on a company's ability to reach in and modify the operating system that you're running. And I want to address that by saying they already have that ability with updates. You're essentially signing off on giving them the ability to make changes, whichever changes they see fit, in exchange for continuing to be secured against the latest viruses and malware. So, I mean, Chrome OS updates every 6 weeks. They add and remove features all the time based on data that they obtain using histograms. So they determine this feature isn't being used, but by 0.03% of our user base, it's not worth maintaining moving forward. They drop it. So I think as far as that goes, purely as an intellectual subject, we've all kind of already come to terms about that. The people that haven't are still running Windows XP, and they're confused why updates are stopping. So I'm not as conflicted on that subject, but I am really, really in agreement with James in regard to potential for abuse. I really think that I'm okay with the feature existing. I'm okay with Google disabling extensions at their discretion. What I would like to see more of is transparency for the process. Um, for example, right now a very hot topic is governmental abuse when it comes to digital privacy. In reaction to that, Google publishes governmental information request reports. Google maintains a central site you can go to and view how many data requests the United States federal government made last year in total, or at least the ones they're allowed to talk about. I would like to see Google publish a database like that, an info set for extensions that they blacklist from the Chrome Web Store. Maybe don't release every extension's name. Maybe there's some privacy issues there, like if they blacklist a company for aggressive SEO tactics or something. But I would like to see the number, at least the grand total. They're removing 6,000 a year or 4 a year, because I think that alone would go a long way toward comforting people, or at least proving that it's not necessarily just arbitrary. I think that's really the abuse that concerns me. I'm not really worried about Google removing, for example, Office Online from the Chrome Web Store. That the backlash, the PR backlash, would prevent that. What I'm more worried about is the potential for abuse from removing startup apps or just randomly removing good quality apps because of automated mishaps. And I think forcing them, or at least on their own terms, publishing those types of reports would give them enough of a reason to take it seriously. I think a lot of times Google gets caught up in the data aspect and not necessarily the common sense human aspect. So I think just taking it a bit more seriously than they currently are in terms of outlining the process. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know they had this ability before this happened, and the way they handled it was great. But I kind of feel like I should have known about this. How many other extensions do I have that might have disappeared over the years that I didn't notice? So I'm okay with the feature, I'm okay with the ability, but I need more transparency. That's kind of a deal breaker for me.
Well, now I will also give Google a little bit of credit, because of the fact that they use like scanners basically, right? They don't take a submission and review it in detail and dig into each finite point of the code. Now you can see that as like a bad thing, but then again, it's also your speed to market's actually pretty fast with these applications and extensions, right? So and there's a little bit of good faith in there. Now then they do these scans, they get this blacklist together, and I think Craig, you make a great point. Having that blacklist be available, throughout, have everyone have access and see why. Like it would say disabled, or it would just say removed from store and allowed to sit out there in the world. I've actually got a link to 2 more articles out there. Basically, there's the one where Google blocks the install of Chrome extensions outside the web store for Windows users. Now, this is an article that Joey threw up on OMG Chrome, where he goes over why they did it, but basically, some of the tools that are available, like when you download something and then it says, would you like this Chrome app or this Chrome extension that's going to do this for you, blah, 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 that won't work anymore on Windows. Because basically it's going against some of the terms of service, so to speak. I believe I don't know if it's terms of service, but the other thing is, the other article I linked to is the fact that Chrome is actually going to start banning the bloated extensions, right? Some of these extensions we like, some of them we don't, but you have to have a of focus for your extension. It can't do 7 different things. They're going to want you to make 7 different extensions and break it out. So they're already pushing now to get it tighter and tighter. They're doing the search integration on the web store. They're really digging in and protecting the user. That's kind of their point, and I totally see that. But it's also from the web store itself. So like you're buying these applications from the web store, from the one place, and it's good to go. Being able to sideload Chrome apps, I think is going to become like a common thing. I think we do that now with Android, right? And they're not reaching out and disabling those. iOS, Craig, you mentioned the fact that iOS is, or you mentioned the fact that they didn't let us know. Well, iOS didn't either. People had to dig through the code and then found the manifest that said that it would allow them to do it. And this was way back in the day. They were like, and it became a big brouhaha because they were like, you can kill stuff? Apple can kill stuff? And it was terrible. But Apple definitely needed it because, like, when it comes to their intellectual property and the fact that they have an ironclad grip on every facet of that operating system, was fundamental for them to have that ability, especially with things like the apps that would come through for the tethering and things like that. They had to stop that because they had agreements with the carriers to prevent things like that. So they had to do that. On the other side of it, when it comes to Android, there's been times when they've removed them from the web store, the Android store, but they left them out there. But there's also been instances when I believe that they've actually tried to disable them across the board. So they actually have both abilities. So with Chrome OS, I think it's kind of the same thing. If something's malicious and it's doing a lot of damage, it's stealing your data, they're going to disable it. If it's something that you need to know to turn off and get rid of, do it, right? So, or release the information out there. So there's multiple ways of doing it. There definitely needs to be more transparency. I don't like it initially, but that's because I come from the land of installing an application. It came with a license. I own it. It's mine. I'm done. Especially with, it's funny, things like Linux and stuff like that. I grab the source and I just build it, and it's my app now. I mean, I actually have the source and I can see it. Versus these online, cloud computing devices where the application is really going to be this really thin client that's going to do some stuff, and it's all based on one operating system, and Google's protecting us, and they're doing a good job at it. And now they reveal that they have the ability to take away those malicious that malicious code and protect the users, especially someone that's not as savvy like we are. I mean, we're probably going to own a Linux box on the side or a Windows box on the side, but honestly, my grandma has this, and she starts using Cryptokit. I hope she gets the right Cryptokit. I don't think my grandma would ever use Cryptokit, but I'm just saying, it is something that definitely is there to protect them. But I think you need transparency. But I am down with it, and I'm going to hold on to my Chrome OS, my Chrome boxes, my Chromebooks. I'm definitely going to hold on to everything that I got. I'm not jumping off the wagon at all. So, any final thoughts, gentlemen? Craig, I'll start with you.
You should probably start with James because I spoke last. I want to hear what he has to say.
Well, no, I'm being fair. James, Craig's throwing it back to you.
Sure. Yeah, I would. I'm always a fan of transparency because I am a huge fan of just knowing what's going on. It makes me wonder if I actually opened up their terms of service and read every word of it. I'm kind of scared to think what else I would find in there that I didn't know about. And then when I write my list of all these things that I wish Google would have told me about, my next question is, how would they have brought it to my attention? Like, send out an email to everybody with a Gmail address that says, hey, just in case you were wondering, we can kill apps on your Chromebook or Windows device. Just thought you'd want to know about that. There's so many things in those terms of service that we're kind of in a sticky spot because we have two choices. One, read every damn word in that terms of service and go to school, get a law degree so you know what it all means, and then you know exactly what you're getting into. And then if you don't like it, just don't use Chrome. Or we just dive in and just hope that Google has our best interests at heart. And that's what 99.10% of us do, is just click I agree and just hope that Google has our best interests. And so we're kind of in a sticky situation because, Google has been around for a long time. They got a lot of users. How bad would it have to get to make John Oliphant abandon Google? How many things in their terms of service, how many apps do they have to reach into your computer and disable before you say, you know what, I'm done with Chrome, I'm done with Google, I'm going to start using Safari? And so it's kind of risky because Google knows that they kind of got us, hooked. We know that Google has us hooked. So we're all just kind of hoping, that Google has our best interest, so I don't have to consider abandoning it and finding some other solution for everything that I do on my computer. But I think Google also knows that we will. If they get, if they start abusing their powers, people will stop using Chrome. They'll start using Firefox. They'll start using other browsers. There's other browsers that are based on Chrome code that might be just as good as Chrome with a little more development. So they know that if they do abuse their powers, we will leave, but we also kind of know that it would take a lot of abuse before we would probably abandon the whole ecosystem. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that they're not going to abuse stuff, that they're just going to keep being at least as transparent as they have been. You mentioned the government and making inquiries about our data. Google made a fun little video that kind of describes the whole process of what happens when the government inquires about our data, and basically Google makes them jump through a bunch of hoops, as many hoops as they possibly can to get our data, and so that's kind of fun. So Google's been fairly transparent. I just hope they keep that up, especially when it comes to reaching into my computer when I'm not looking.
Now, Craig, what about you, sir?
Well, I would start by saying that, yeah, Google makes the government jump through a lot of hoops, but they also make us jump through a lot of hoops to figure out what they're doing sometimes too. So that kind of cuts both ways. We're never the beneficiaries of that sort of thing. Uh, as to where they would publish that blacklist, I think that's a perfectly valid question. I don't think their official blogs would necessarily be the appropriate place to put something like that, but I definitely think their chromium.org design doc pages, that's kind of the context that it fits, where it's there, it's not in your face, but it's only a search away, which is kind of the whole Google ideology anyway. But just transparently detail, put together a little fun little video of what happens when a Chrome extension or app just disappears. I mean, why does it disappear? What are the different scenarios? Is there any manual oversight at all, or is it completely automated? How much social media noise has to be made before someone at Google pays attention to us? Those types of questions. And I'm not trying to be extraordinary harsh, but I'm a little frustrated about the entire situation, mostly because of the lack of transparency. Like James said, I should say, like James, I'm just a nosy person in general. So I like to know how things work, or at least I like to know that I have the ability to read a document and learn how it works should I choose. So it's kind of frustrating to me there, but like James said, it's going to take a lot of abuse to really make me consider Firefox or Opera as an option these days. But given enough abuse, I would. Opera's based on Chromium. They've come a long way, and it would be like jumping ship to something that's just as feature-filled with just a different design and less sync features. So the potential's there. It's just a matter of how much abuse we're kind of willing to take.
Well, I think we're all willing to take a little bit, especially for something free like Chrome OS. I think that Gmail has been one of those things where we've been willing to take a little bit of a hit. Now, the thing is that I'm taking a generalization, by the way. They don't steal any of your data in Gmail, right? They don't read it and like look at it or anything. Like no human looks at it. But people do understand that they are allowing targeted ads towards them based off that data. There was a big brouhaha about that. About there's advertisements in there and like they're obtrusive. They're not, but that's beside the point anyway. But I think that they've done a good job with that, though, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're willing to take these terms of service and roll with them, especially with Chrome OS. This is the first thing that we've seen that they've disabled. Gmail, they've done a really great job with our search. They've done a really great job. Over in the EU, they just ruled on the fact that they would, they you're gonna be able to erase your internet history if you need to. I haven't looked into that yet, but that was very interesting. So I think, what is that? Do no harm, do no evil. Whatever it is, that one slogan that they have. I think that they've stuck with it. But I also think that we pointed out the fact that the government said the same thing. It's one of those, look at the hand, not what I'm doing over here. Like, I'm doing something over here, but just look at the hand. Right. Hey. Meanwhile, I'm over here. Right. So the whole trust no one thing also comes out. It's like the X-Files. Don't trust anybody. There's no. Anywho, that's the end of it. I think that was a great discussion, guys. I think that Craig, I appreciate you bringing it up. Talking about something like that. We've been talking about this on mobile devices for the past couple of years. Now it's coming to an operating system, and I'm so used to owning the applications, owning the data that comes with them, being able to dig inside of all of the data files inside of the application and inside of the data files that are created by the application, and being able to see it. It becomes difficult, I think, to let that go a little bit. So, well, it really was a great discussion. When it comes to the next parts of the show, the login section, I don't have anything. There's not much to it. Plus ones, I'm afraid I didn't really. It's been a rough week. I'll be honest with you. It's been a rough week, so I haven't had a chance really to get much together. I did use Google Music recently. I've been using it more and more because the girls been getting some songs and doing some stuff, and that's been kind of cool because they've got some pop-out stuff, the Google Music app, things like that. Really good. It works well. I feel like I'm like promoting Google a little bit too much there, but it works and works well. So there was that. So let's look at, I guess we'll go ahead and end the show. By the way, real quick poll, a 3-person poll, right? Craig, do we run too long? What do you think?
Are you asking if you talk too much?
No, I'm not asking if I talk too much. Because my wife will tell you yes. Because I already know the answer to that. No. Do you think that we run too long? Because, last week was like an hour and a half, and now we're at almost 60 minutes. That's almost 70 minutes at this point.
Well, honestly, I'm okay with it because I feel like we are taking our time when we're discussing topics. We're not rushing anything. And for listeners that are a little fed up with the length, there is the fantastic GigaOM Chrome show, which runs 15 to 30 minutes-ish most weeks. So, if you would prefer the quicker format, they're a fantastic option. If you want a little bit more perspective, there are 3 of us versus 2 of them. It takes us time to just get around the table. I think we're filling the other void.
Agreed. James, what about you, sir?
Well, I'll just say this. There is a verse in the Bible that talks about Peter preaching for so long that one of his disciples falls out the window because he falls asleep. And I am on the 2nd floor in my house, sitting right next to a window. So I'm a little scared, but so far it's been okay. I agree with Craig. It's nice to take some time and talk about things rather than just blasting through stuff and not getting much insight. So I think an hour is pretty good. Like he said, it kind of fills a void. You have the short and sweet, and you have kind of the long and detailed. So I think we're filling a good void, and if people are willing to stick around for an hour, I'm willing to talk for an hour.
Oh yeah, you know it. Well, listen, I'm gonna put this out there. I'm gonna ask anybody, people are listening. Be sure to hit us up. Hit the contact page. You can make a comment there on practicalchrome.com. You can also tweet us, practicalchrome. And also shoot me an email, John at practicalchrome. And let me know if you think that it should be a little bit shorter, a lot shorter, just the same, or if you really want us to talk for like 3 hours, because yeah, I know I will.
That's not happening.
All right, James, where can people find you throughout the week, sir?
Well, they can find me on Facebook. You can find me on or did I say Facebook?
You just said Facebook.
You can find me on Facebook. I wouldn't recommend it. Not a lot of intelligent conversation happens on Facebook, especially on my wall. But you can find me on Google Plus, where I try to at least come up with something halfway intelligent to say, usually Google related. But But I'm on the Google Plus. You can also find me at tech.itiswhatitis.biz.
Excellent, excellent. And Craig, where can people find you on Facebook?
Well, not on Facebook, John, but they can find me on Pinterest, Instagram, and Vine. So I am all over the place.
I'm
but
on Zanga.
Are you? I'm actually on Apple's Ping social network.
Now that was disbanded. Stop it.
They can find me on Google Plus, or ChromeUp.com, or apparently on OMG Chrome if you bother to check who writes the article.
And the yesterdaily.com.
Occasionally.
Occasionally.
For time travelers.
All right. Well, I can be found here in my home in Baltimore, not reading bylines. Thank you very much. And only checking Reddit every once in a while. My name is John Oliphant, and you can find me on the Google Pluses under John Oliphant, as well as john@practicalchrome.com. You can email me there. Practicalchrome.com, as you all know, is the place to go for everything related to this wonderful video podcast that we have here. And of course, be sure to check us out every evening. Not every evening. You could watch every evening though. That'd be kind of fun. An hour of your evening every night dedicated to our show. It'd be pretty cool. No, every Tuesday at 10:10 p.m. we are live broadcasted. Me, Craig, and James. We hit it up. We go over the news. We go over everything Chrome related, and we are really thankful that you've had a chance to listen to us and watch us this evening. And we hope that you come back next week. And yeah. Now there's one thing, real quick. Two things. Age of Ascent, right? We've talked about this a couple times. I'm still really into it because it's awesome, and they've done a lot of really great things out there with it. Especially Craig's ARM chip loaded HP11. It's flying. They did some really good stuff with the performance. I was able to get in on the last 4 o'clock session on Saturdays where they where you're allowed to do the beta alpha test. Man, they're really coming along. And we talked about the gamepad. We talked about James asked us, Niswan asked us to talk about the gamepad. What do they call it? Standard for the internet and the W3C and having a standard out there for the gamepad, so that way you can control your ship with a Xbox controller or whatever, go up to your computer or your Chromebook. And it's coming along. Actually, Francois just mentioned that all that's coming to Chrome OS, and then in turn they're going to use the W3 standard for gamepads for internet, HTML, and all that good stuff. So hats off. It's going to be awesome. Going to get that rolling. Also, I'm going to personally just say that in Illyriad, I'm kicking some butt. I almost got a new town. I'm rolling. So Illyriad's also going really well. Anyway, I'll let y'all go. I just want to let everybody know that because it's kind of cool. And I want to let everybody know about Illyriad and Age of Ascent and that they're doing really good. So, okay, I'll let everybody go. All right. Have a good night, guys.
See you, John.